Dave August Fulcherash, hello and welcome back to Hazel Jane Tarot. And today we're going to talk about July 2022, which for me is summertime. That means lots of family experiences, seeing friends, summer holidays, and it's been a great month, busy and fun. So we're going to talk about decks, books, TV, a few other experiences along the way. So first thing I guess I'll share is the deck that I used the most in July 2022, and that is the Superlunaris Tarot. Now I didn't do a pile of reading, to be honest, but when I did want to pull out a deck, this is the deck that I tended to reach for. So I haven't filmed a full video about the Superlunaris Tarot yet. I should do. You see those two lines? There's a reason for that. I'll go into that when I have a separate video. But the Superlunaris Tarot, as you can see, is a really modern, colourful collage kind of. It's like a mixture of collage and digital art, I think. But the bright blues, just the colours of it when you lay it out in a spread, it's so vibrant. As you can see, it's Rider-Waite-Smith based. The characters depicted are just gorgeous. I mean, look at that Queen of Pentacles. She was one of the cards that made me want to get this deck in the first place. But yeah, it's just a really energetic, modern, diverse, beautiful deck. It's just really nice, right up my street. I didn't get it when it came out new. I actually bought it secondhand from another tarot tuber last month in June, so I've been really enjoying working with it. So just grabbing a drink of tea, and yeah, this has been my favorite deck that I've used this month, and in fact it's been one of the only decks I've used this month. Look at her, Queen of Cups, beautiful. So it's got pink gilding, the backs are delicious. Yeah, I think I need to film a full detailed review of that deck because I'm really enjoying it. So that's the Superlunaris Tarot, and that has sort of been the main one I've been picking up if I wanted to do a tarot reading. There were a few new decks came in July. I have actually filmed unboxings of all of these, but I've only posted one of them. So I'll show you that one first. So that was the Unfolding Path Tarot. And this beautiful deck is by Athena Arcana. Absolutely gorgeous Rider-Waite-Smith based art deck. So the only bummer with this deck is that it does have a slight bow, and when I put the cards down, they just do sit up slightly. So I need to work with it a bit more to try to work that out. The cardstock is thin, but they're really super flexible for ruffle shuffling, which is a good thing in my book. So the beautiful, I don't know what the medium is. It has a sort of watercolor look to the background, certainly. It would remind me of something like the Lightseers Tarot, maybe, in that it's, you know, images from modern life, a lovely diverse cast of characters depicted, and yeah, it's just a really relatable Rider-Waite-Smith version, which yeah, I really like. I think it's really gorgeous. So I haven't used it very much yet. Actually, I don't think I've read with it at all yet. But I love the white borders. It would remind me of the Gaian Tarot in that regard, and it's really nice. So that was a Kickstarter that I backed, and that came in this month. I think there are some people who've backed that Kickstarter who haven't received it yet, but we in fact just got an email today to say that she's hoping to get them all shipped out in the next 3 weeks. So if you're seeing this and you still haven't got yours, I think it's coming. Beautiful back. So lovely deck. And that was the new tarot deck that I got this month, the Unfolding Path Tarot, which was a Kickstarter. Now, I got some Oracle decks in July as well, and I have filmed unboxings, but I just haven't posted them yet. And both of these were secondhand purchases from Facebook buy-sell trade groups. If you are trying not to buy too many decks, stay away from Facebook buy-sell trade groups. Because what will happen is somebody in Finland will post that they're selling a deck that you liked a couple of years ago and forgot about, and then you see it again and you think, oh, maybe I should get that. Which is why I have the New Age Hipster Insta Oracle in my hand. So this is by, I can't remember her surname, Victoria, is it Maxwell? Vix Maxwell is the creator, I think. Now, Vix has since gone on to create a couple of mass market decks. And so I don't know, this I don't think is currently available on her website, the New Age Hipster Insta Oracle. So as you can see, it's sort of based on Instagram pictures, and I get the impression that they might be Vix's own Instagram pictures. Because like just the style of it is very much like the kind of thing she might wear, or and so they're just random like landscapes, food pictures. There's no guidebook, so everybody's going to have different associations with the cards. So for example, you and I might feel very differently about a soy decaf. You might think that's the best thing ever. I might think, where's my tea? So, but yeah, it's a really cute, quirky deck. There's nothing really, I don't have anything else like it. And I think it was just because somebody was selling it. It was something I remembered liking the look of whenever Vix brought it out in the first place. But at that point, I wasn't the person who was buying every indie deck she liked the look of. So I didn't get it back then, and I just thought I'd grab it when I got the chance. It's quite inspiring to think of making your own deck as well. So so that's one of the new decks I got, and I haven't read with it at all yet, and I'll post my full walkthrough of it very soon. The other new deck that I got was the Healers of the Earth Oracle, and this is by Mandy Peterson, who was Mystic Mandy on social media, I think. So this is a deck that I had my eye on for ages, and every time I saw pictures of it on Instagram, I would think, oh, I should get that. There was a recent reprinting of it, I think in 2021. I didn't get it then, and I think shipping from America might have been one of the factors that put me off. But I got this again from Finland, coincidentally, although a different seller. I got this secondhand through Facebook groups. So this is the other deck I've been using really in July, and this has kind of become the one that is in my bedroom for those sort of nighttime card pulls, and the guidebook is there as well. So it's quite a substantial guidebook, which you will see in the walkthrough of the deck when I post that. I haven't posted it yet. So the style of this deck is very much reminiscent of, to me, something like Gianna Della Grottaglia's art. For some of the decks like Wisdom of the Oracle or the Enchanted Path. It has a sort of magical feel. There's lots of fairies in it, which is, it's not usually my cup of tea, but it just always really appealed to me when I saw it online. I particularly like this one, Braving the Storm. It's computer art, so some of the people's sort of eyes maybe or facial expressions aren't, it's not photoreal, has that sort of digital look to it, but they're very, very pretty. But the thing that really is attractive about this, which I didn't know until I got it and started reading the guidebook and really kind of working with it, is that this deck is designed for people who are very sensitive to their environment, be that stuff going on in the world around you or on the news. And like, let's be honest, the news cycle has been very intense for the last few years, and this deck is sort of geared to helping you work through emotions and feelings and issues around that whole empathetic being, what she describes as earth sensitive, and working through that. So that's really interesting. So as a result, the deck is in suits. So you've got like personal, physical, industry and technology, spiritual hygiene, hypervigilance and illusion, purification and release. Like, so the cards are in suits, and then in the guidebook there is a meaning for its personal significance, and then also there are meanings for like the big macro picture, like things that might be coming up in the news or might be causing you issues that way. There are also a few, I think this deck, the one that came out in 2021, has a few 2020 themed cards that are towards the end of the deck, which I think are new cards for this edition, like that mention, well, there's Quarantine, but that's one of the lower numbered cards. Let's see if I can find it. They're so pretty. Oh, they're going to be like the bottom cards, aren't they? Oh, they're not popping up at all. I don't know where they've gone. Maybe they've passed me by and I didn't notice. But there's a couple of 2020 themed cards that refer specifically to our experiences of the last few years, which, again, for a deck that's about processing sensitivity to what's going on in your environment, felt quite relevant, and it probably will do it eventually, but not for a while. So so this has been a really interesting deck to start to get to know, and as I say, the book is very substantial, so there's lots to look at with that. So if you want to properly see all the cards and my reactions to them, there is a walkthrough video that's about 45 minutes long, forthcoming at some stage when I get it uploaded. Okay, so what else? That's the deck stuff. So 3 new decks in July. Not very restrained of me. So the next thing I'd like to talk about maybe is TV. So I got to watch the finale of season 4 of Stranger Things in July, and it was awesome, really fantastic. I loved how it tied up all the plot lines from that season. The pacing sometimes felt a bit uneven between some of the plot lines, but how everything got tied up, I really, really enjoyed. And the setup into season 5 is pretty exciting. So I love that, and feel free to discuss Stranger Things with me in the comments below. The other TV that I watched was the TV show Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is on Netflix. Now, this was a rewatch for me. I first watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend when I first got Netflix, so about 4 years ago. I watched the entire thing, and that was my first ever Netflix experience. And I ended up rewatching it because a friend of mine was watching it, and as we got talking about it, I wanted to go back and rewatch some of the songs from the show, and then ended up rewatching the whole thing. So I can't believe I've actually rewatched the whole of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, all 4 seasons. So if you're not familiar with it, it's a musical based show. So it follows a main character called Rebecca Bunch. Rachel Bloom's the creator, star, writer. But Rebecca Bunch is the main character, and she leaves her high-paid job in New York to go to kind of small-town California, sort of suburban sprawl, to follow like a childhood sweetheart, in the hope of like having a better life and hooking up with him along the way. And so Josh Chan is the big love interest in season 1 anyway. Things get more complicated as it goes along. The title of the show kind of put me off initially, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. It sounds not great, but it actually deals in quite an interesting way with a lot of really like issues around mental health with the main character, which it takes the 4 seasons for it all to kind of play out and develop. But it was quite interesting how it all ends up, and the songs in the show are great, and I think it's just a fun show. And so yeah, if you like musicals and you haven't watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, I suggest you check it out. Other music wise, doing a lot of driving about through July, and I was listening to a lot of different things, but one of the CDs that I enjoyed the most was Taylor Swift's album Lover, which I hadn't listened to in ages, and just has a real summery feel to it, some great songs on that. So enjoyed playing that a few times while driving around in the sunshine. And again, the Tick Tick Boom soundtrack it just keeps coming back out. The songs on it are fantastic, and the really fun thing is that my little daughter loves this album and will ask for it. And her favourite song is the song No More, which is about moving to a better apartment. And she sings along with some of the words. And yeah, like there are a few bits where I have to turn the volume down on the CD so she can't hear it. But mostly it's fine. And it's just great fun to enjoy those songs together with her. Sorry, I just closed the window. There was a little bit of noise coming in from outside. So the last thing really I want to talk to you about is books. I actually got quite a lot of reading done in July. Some fiction, some non-fiction. So in case you give up and leave, I'll talk about the best one first. So this book, The Raptures by Jan Carson, was fantastic. This writer is from Northern Ireland, and this is a story that is set in the 1990s in a small town in County Antrim, Northern Ireland. So really near where I live, but like a fictional small town. And the premise is that an entire P7 class, so that's the around 11 years old, the oldest class of primary school, that the children start becoming really ill and dying. And the main narrative viewpoint that we're working through in third person is one of those children. And the ghosts of the children that die sort of appear to her. And that's sort of the main narrative thread as the story progresses. But we do jump in and out of other characters in the village, other people connected to this young girl or the other children, getting to understand the points of view and the mindsets of lots of different characters in this community. And initially I thought, oh, this is going to be a pandemic book. And I suppose it is partly because it's about an illness, but it's not a contagious disease. I don't want to spoil it too much by telling you, I don't want to tell you what it was, because the sort of, is there a rational explanation? Is it supernatural? That sort of tension through the novel is part of what makes it quite creepy in places. And there's one particular scene that's set at nighttime where the little girl who's the main character goes to the raggedy tree, which is like a wishing tree, at night. That scene was so well written. It really was, the stuff of bad dreams, great. It was a great chapter. The book was great. It ended up, to me, it read like a book about trauma survivors and about maybe the Troubles in Northern Ireland in a kind of tangential way, like about being the one who survives a traumatic event and how that impacts you. So it's great. I mean, it's a great novel. It's just a good story, but it really it captures the voice of Northern Ireland people as well. So for me, we don't often come across voices like that in fiction, and the way the dialogue is written is just really rings true, and the characters and the types of character in the novel really ring true. It's a great book, probably one of the best books I've read this year. So if you want to read a book by a Northern Irish writer, The Raptures by Jan Carson, you couldn't really go far wrong. And if you do end up reading it, I would love to know what you think of it. So that was a really good book. Some other fiction that I read Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. This is a sequel to Children of Blood and Bone. So it's a fantasy novel written for young adults, and it's set in the fictional country of Orisha. The capital city is Lagos, I think, of Orisha. So it's sort of inspired by a lot of different, it creates this magical world where people have magical powers, and there's all these different types of people with different types of magical powers. And then there's a lot of political intrigue between the royal family and the Magi, who are the people with the magic. It's full of action. It's kind of, there's a bit of romance, as you would expect for a YA novel, although this sequel had a lot less romance in it and was much more focused on the two main young women trying to come into their power and dealing with responsibility and stuff. I did really enjoy it. I think the only thing I'm not super keen on in this writer, I found it in the last book as well, is I couldn't differentiate very quickly between the two female characters as I was reading. They read very similar in terms of the narrative voice, but the plot, the characters are great, and I think there's some talk of making it into a series or film or something. It would be a cracking good film or series. So if you haven't read that and you think it sounds interesting, Children of Blood and Bone is the first one. They're really enjoyable stories. And then I read Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So she also wrote, as you can see, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I also read earlier this year and loved. So Malibu Rising, it was a really quick read. I think I got through it in a day and a half. Family story. It's set in, is it the 1970s in Malibu? I can't remember exactly the decade, but it flashes back and tells the story of the main characters, which are a group of siblings, and then their parents, particularly their mother and famous father. So it's a sort of, rich, successful people kind of story. But they come from poverty and there's some hardship in their story along the way. And there's the young people, the main characters, are surfers, and, so it's kind of glamorous story. And the main narrative is set around a party, like one 24-hour period, and then particularly this party in the evening, which becomes very gets really out of control, and then it's intercut with the backstory of the parents. So it was really enjoyable, real quick page turning read, and I very much enjoyed this as well. And then some non-fiction. On Audible, I listened to Feral by George Monbiot, and that was recommended by Candy over at Candy Soul and Soil. And it's a book that explores our relationship with wild nature and the idea of rewilding. From a few different perspectives, it interweaves a bit of George Monbiot's biography and his personal experiences in nature, say for example going sea fishing. But there's a lot of conversations with people around the wild landscapes of the UK and the ways they're being conserved at the moment and ways in which they could be conserved. And there's a long section on the reintroduction of species, particularly species that are extinct in the UK, but not extinct in other places, and how that might work, and explorations of why those animals are no longer in the UK. Where did they die out from hunting? Did they die out from climatic change? It's just very, very interesting, and lots of stuff to make you think and, think about. For example, in Ireland, we have these wild treeless landscapes, and that those are not, well, to our eyes, that's what we've always seen from childhood. So that seems to us to be a natural landscape. But actually, that is the result of sustained hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of years of deforestation and grazing and so on that has left the landscape like that, which just raises a lot of questions about what kind of landscape we want to preserve. So really interesting book if you're interested in those issues. I wouldn't expect to agree with everything he says in the book, but definitely will make you think about some of these questions. So that was Feral by George Monbiot. That was really interesting. And then my other Audible listen this month was Waking the Witch by Pam Grossman. And that was a really interesting book too. And I listened to it quite quickly because I was traveling for a few days. And what she does in this book is each chapter sort of looks at the idea of the archetype of witch, or the name witch, and how that's explored in culture. So she has a whole chapter that's very much around the Wizard of Oz. But then she has a long chapter that deals with kind of TV pop culture depictions of witches, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that kind of thing. And that's interwoven with biographical content from the writer, like about her own childhood and how those depictions of which impacted her personally. There's a really interesting chapter about artists, female artists who either identified as witches or who painted about magical type, subject matter. There was a lot in the book. So it's kind of, as I say, like an exploration of the idea of what is a witch and how witches are perceived in culture. There was this quite a long chapter towards the end which dealt with the use of the word witch, both in positive and negative ways, in sort of social media and memes and in politics and stuff. So it covers quite a broad area, and I thought it was a really interesting book. So if you're interested in the idea of witch, it was kind of like listening to a podcast. I think she does a podcast, this writer. So listening to the audiobook, it was like, each chapter was like a really meaty podcast. So it was really good listen. And then the other books, a lot of books this month, and they were all pretty good. I read this, so Teaching to Transgress, Education as the Practice of Freedom by Bell Hooks. I had come across Bell Hooks really recently, just when she died, which was just a matter of months ago, I think. I had never heard of her before, and a lot of the people I follow on social media were posting about her at the time that she died. So I had sort of marked this as one of the books as a book I wanted to read, and I had some time to read it this month. It is a book that I highlighted a lot of content in, and one that I will go back through again, the highlighted content. It was, she's writing from the point of view of being a university professor, and about the experience of teaching, and also the experience of being a student in academia as a Black woman in those spaces. And she talks a lot about voices in education and how teachers help to bring out the voices of the students or not, and about there was a lot of stuff like that. I think if for anybody who is interested in, like, it's not really a book about, it's not a how-to book. It's not full of techniques to use in a classroom or in a lecture theatre or whatever. It's more like a pedagogical, ideological kind of exploration about like the underpinning of your approach. So not what you're actually doing in the classroom, but why, and what your goals are and so on. So really interesting read, and I will definitely read more from Bell Hooks. If you have a particular text, if you know Bell Hooks, if you have a particular book you would like to recommend, please do let me know in the comments, because I want to read some more of her stuff, because that Teaching to Transgress was great. And finally, I've just finished Astrology Made Easy by Yasmin Boland. Now this book was a gift from James Feeney at Lemniscate Logic. I won this in a giveaway on his channel, and he sent it to me, and I hadn't got around to reading it until this month. So this book is a really good just sort of primer for just getting you started. It chunks things up, maybe even too much, I felt, but you can see I've written in sections, so it goes through, it gets you to get your birth chart, so you need your time and place of birth as well as your date of birth, and then you can create your birth chart, which I then downloaded, and then you can use that document to go through step by step. So where your planets are, learning the glyphs for the different planets, for example, and then where your planets are in your chart, and then which houses they're in, and then which zodiac sign controls each house, and what the houses stand for. And so you start to understand this business as well, which are the aspects between the planets in your chart, and it goes into a lot. And I have, highlighted some of the content that's relevant to me, but I have just started to make notes on this, like what I've made notes of what is where in my chart, but in terms of the meanings, I think I will need to get myself another astrology book to sort of build on what's in this book. and help me understand, you know, my placements and what those really mean. So if you can recommend a second step astrology book, if you're into astrology and you think that this something would be a good number 2 read, please do let me know in the comments below. Because once I've worked through this, I think I would like to jump on and have a look at another book at some point along the way. So at the end of all that, all those books and everything, I did attend the Tarot Association of the British Isles conference in July, and that was in Manchester in England, and I filmed a separate video about that, which either I will be uploading soon or is already on my channel. And so that was a great experience, really enjoyable. So I'm not going to show you the decks that I got there or talk about that any further, because that's all in that other video. So thanks so much for swinging by my channel and watching my favorites video. I, as always, really enjoy the chats in the comments. So if you are still watching, maybe put a wee sun in the comments for a sunny summer. And yeah, let me know how your summer is going. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.